Okay. Um. Somebody, I'm not saying who, for the sake of their privacy, sent me a AO3 link of works by Morpheal in Eddsworld, all media types. And the first work to show up is Purr Like a Cat. Let's read these tags. No archive warnings apply. Ed Extord Eddsworld. Ed Eddsworld. Matt Eddsworld. Toward Eddsworld. Tom Eddsworld. Medical experimentation. Human experimentation. Chemicals. Chemical spell. Transformation. Animal traits. Cat human hybrids. Hybrids. Cat toward anal sex. Cowgirl position. Exhibitionism. Semi public sex. Riding. Grinding. Slow build. Orgasm delay. Slash denial. Cream pie. What's the least amount of chapters? Uh-oh. Gun violence? Gun self-defense. Whoa! Wolf in sheep's clothing, one more feel. Wolf toward sheep tom. Mating cycles slash in heat mating chases. Predator prey. Not more. Eating out. Or else. Oh, this is short too, so I can do this. Oh, fellas. I think we're in for a decently wild ride. Let me pull out my Wii U. Get something jazzy, jive, and playing for y'all. I could do that. Okay.
The next 30
Minutes are ad free, thanks to the following sponsor. Your fresh gum. No says no to Mentos.
taste a world of freshness that brings people together.
The mountains could be. I can't read it like this.
Thanks for watching.
Click here for more information. Now, enjoy the next 30 minutes of ad-free music. I guess that's Adsworld E. Summary. The mountains can be a cruel and worthless place to live. Food is scarce, predators lurk around every corner, and there was no guarantee when your next meal would be. One cornered by a wolf in the snowy tundras, pinned with no chance of escape. Tom has one last-stage biological failsafe to stop himself from becoming a meal. Not that he exactly meant to go into heat, but hey, he'd rather take a knot than wind up torn to shreds every day. Wow, this was self-indulgent. Just inspired by Moro's Lemonade and Cockade. What is that name? This is a real Tumblr blog. Oh god, I have to explore this after the reading. I'm probably gonna get copyright notice from White Woods. Fucking White Woods. You never know. It's fucking White Woodies. So I'll just read it. I think these people are British. From my imagination, from my knowledge. I should do a face cam. Oh, that's a great idea. Take up more of my storage space. Ah, awesome. Dude, I could just do that. I could just upload a video of me reading. No. I can't. I'm not doing this. Ba ba, black sheep, have you any wool? The ominous tone rang out beyond the edge of the mountainside, the growling undertone enough to strike fear into the hearts of any prey creature within earshot. Its rumbling timbre rolled easily, carrying along the empty space that the rocks provided. I don't know how the rest of the song goes. I suppose that'll be my BGM. That's gonna be my BGM. How's that? Let's pull that up. Baba Black Sheep. That's it. $10. Ah, of course. I'll sing along with it. Oh, it sounds like shit too. This is awesome. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. 3 bags full. Thomas could feel his heart beating out of control as the thick paw steps of a wolf crumbled the rocks right below his head, scattering dust onto his thick fur and resulting in his nose twitching at the infiltration to his lungs. Now would be the worst time to sneeze. One for the master. The paws curled over the edge of the rock. Causing Tom's heart to leap out of control at the flashing of those sharp claws. One for the dame. He knew the wolf. Smiling from the way his death was audible even down below. Flashes of the beast's chin visible as he loomed himself over the rock. Finally, it seems like he caught on to what he was looking for, as a wide grin overtook his muzzle. And one for the hungry wolf just down the lane. Instantly, Silver Eyes locked with Black, the monster's tongue sliding out along his lips as he saw the small sheep huddled against the wall. He was skinny and thin as a rail, with too many mouthfuls of fluff for his tastes. But food was food, and Tord was starving. He jumped down from the rock as he saw the sheep cower further, eyes blown wide in terror as that tiny chest rose and fell with each labored breath. Just the warmth of his breath tasted delectable to the wolf, sweetened from a diet of herbs and berries. By the smell of him, an omega as well. No, I'm kidding that out. Tord crouched down low as his powerful form stalked from side to side, attempting to block any exit the sheep wanted to take. He relished in the fear of his prey, the tiny twitching of his limbs as he looked frantically for a way out of the hole he dug himself. I hope you know it's nothing personal. A man has to eat, he said, feeling his mouth salivating at the thought of lamb chops for dinner. From the way the sheep kept scrabbling along the wall, tiny hooves clopping with each pass, Tord almost felt bad. The food shortage was something out its victims on the snowy plains of the Mauro. Any amount of meat clinging to his bones. No doubt the sheep wouldn't have lasted much longer anyways. He took a step forward, only to watch the small lamb dart off to the side in a second. He was a hell of a lot faster than Tord thought, the thin muscles on his body carrying him forward in a single bound. Tord lunged in an attempt to grab him, yet he had already darted from the sides of the rocks and took off in a dead sprint. Damn it. Tord heaved out a loud sigh as he turned and made chase for his meal, barely keeping sight of the retreating rear of the sheep as he bounded across icy rocks. Had it not been for the laws of this land, I would have slaughtered you. Had it not been for the firm grip his claws provided, a long plummet awaited him. Luckily, he was suited for this environment, even if his deep sandy fur didn't exactly provide the best camouflage. He was able to follow even the steepest of ledges that the lamb could run, tiny hooves far superior to big paws. Yet he was determined as he scaled the side of a rather large cliff after the meal. Usually he wouldn't be this desperate for food, yet he hasn't seen sign or tail of anything small enough to eat for a while. Tord would start losing his muscle and bulk should he go much longer without a meal. His breath was visible with each loud huff of exertion, wisping steam billowing from his maw as he urged himself over the side of the cliff. Tom disappeared behind. He merged Well, you get back here. I'll make it quick, I promise. Yet the sheep was still sprinting, even with his limbs grew heavier from the exertion. He chanced to glance over. The pastor asked him the final goodbye. He chanced to glance over his shoulder before squeaking in panic when the wolf was just around the corner. He urged himself to go faster as he threw himself over the top of the cliff, landing within the heavy snow and pines that scattered the mountain top. There was no safe place to hide among the pine trees, the rocky terrain giving way to a forest. He didn't have time to think as he merely kept his legs moving one in front of the other, despite the howl of excitement bubbling up from the wolf. Even if it wasn't looking good for him, Tom was grateful that this wolf seemed to hunt in solitude. A lone wolf was less likely to survive on this frigid landscape and catch prey. By the size of it, he was clearly an alpha. Todd might just be able to outrun him, though. He skidded around the corner before coming to a halt at the sight of an extensive lake spread it out across the mountainside. The currents, no doubt, would lead down to a waterfall, the frigid temperatures barely staved off by the rushing movements of the water to keep it from freezing over. Worst off, though, was that he was cornered. He tried to veer off to the left of the lake, attempting to run around the banks. Yet the precious seconds he paused had cost him dearly. With a distressed cry leaving the sheep, he felt the weight of heavy paws pressing down on his shoulder. Heavy furry body. The feeling of warm breath puffing along his neck as Tom, frozen in terror first, instantly spilling down his cheeks as he knew that this would be the end. Inside he was bubbling hot in his stomach, and the wolf's tongue dragged across his neck. His breath mixed and went quiet circles as he finally had his prey right below him. He gave me quite the runaround little limb, he noted, teeth flashing into a grim smile as he noticed a delicious pulse beating wildly along his meal's neck. I don't much enjoy playing with my food, but you have me at a loss of breath quite fast for how little meat is on your bones, he stated, keeping his nails sunk deep into the soft wool surrounding Tom's shoulders. Yet the tiny creature refused to so much as budge, frozen to the ground as his body trembled within Tord's hold. He didn't exactly find it concerning at first, but they thought he could run, and the little sheep wasn't making much of an effort to escape. It took another minute to catch his breath, but when he did, he reeled back and licked his lips. I did promise to make it quick now, didn't I? At that, Tom began to tremble once more in fear, yet remained completely still as Tord leaned back down to the curve of the creature's neck. He snuffed out where the pulse remained thundering strong, needles peeping back and teeth fitting itself snugly around the side of Tom's neck. Yet the broken king that left him had Tord reeling back as the smell of something far sweeter than his blood, invaded Tord's nostrils. Instantly the rumbling in his stomach seemed to cease, replaced instead with the boiling heat as his nose pressed into Tom's neck, and inhaled deeply. He smelled delectable, in a way that went beyond being a meal, his mouth filling with saliva as he suddenly found his attention turning southward. His grip didn't let up as he reared back, staring at the flushed and panting form of the sheep. He was flat on his stomach, tail twitching as slick seemed to burst down his thighs and coat the smooth skin. Could it be? Tord felt a possessive growl leaving him, as the unmistakable sense of Hito crowed into his nose, afflicting his alpha with the most troubled of thoughts. His hunger had been replaced with a deeply rooted instinctual need to mate, despite the creature below him not even coming close to a compatible species. He was deeply conflicting in his head, causing him to shake his head and squeeze tighter on the sheep's shoulders. "Quit that," he hissed before a low groan leaped from the small creature, humbly shuddered and with breath out in response. Suddenly, the sight of his knees scrabbling along the snow had his attention. Knees lifting his hips up to the perfect lordosis position. Lordosis position! The greatest position for His tail turned upwards as well, presenting his slicked entrance to the wolf in a manner that was borderline shameless. The lambkin seemed to stop the tail flicking from side to side, a small wag that correlated to the subtle swaying of his hips. "I can't, you fucking scatterbrained ass wolf," he breathed out, although he had the feeling he shouldn't be ripping along the predator like this. But the sensation of his hips pressing with his own had the sensible part of his brain on shutdown. a low whimper leaving him as he pushed himself back against the simulation on autopilot. It had the aggressive growl leaving Tord melting into a pleased rumble, head spinning as he had to keep swallowing his tongue to keep from salivating. Finally, he couldn't take it, as his large hand swept from Tom's shoulders to his raised hips. The thought of all the meat on his bones swiftly changing into a desire to taste the slit just below that soft-looking tail. He was dripping slick onto the snow, clenching down onto nothing as his breath came in shallow pans, as the wolf dragged him back by the short of his waist. Instantly, Tom cried out as a warm tongue slid between his folds, gathering the slick and pushing into his warm passage as Tord lost himself in the battle between wits and instincts. He could eat later. For now he had something even tastier than lamb chops to dine on. His tongue will curl up against Tom's clit with each eager pass, pressing back all the way towards his ass and stopping just shy of his wagging tail. Growing entertained by the constant swoosh of it, he reached his hand up to wrap around the fur and give it a playful hug. The reaction was golden as Tom shuddered and arched his back further, breath leaving him in a lewd pant as his hooves scratched along the snow. He didn't even care that his wool was becoming heavily saturated with the flakes, only desperate to push back further against Tord's muzzle. He could feel the flashes of gums and fangs when the wolf's tongue reached deep inside of his cunt. The knowledge that they previously were trying to tear him apart only sent another terror-fueled rush of heat throughout his body. Omega's last lines of defense against predators, whereas the unconscious release of a foe one strong enough to deter the beast from eating into breeding, even if the species weren't compatible. He didn't even realize that he had done it. Body freezing up in a terror so potent it sent his entire brain haywire. Yet now, he had no clue what was going to happen. The tongue felt so thick and warm against his entrance, lapping him open and testing the gift to his pussy with each stroke. The sheep was nearly on a cloud 9 by the time that Tord pulled back, hunger in his eyes as his tongue dripped in a combination of drool and slick. He licked it up like a treat, before once more throwing his body over Tom and mounting him when he felt the lamb was ready enough. He nuzzled deep into the scent, resulting in the terror once more pushing out his heat to have Tord growing in delight as he looked at the side of his glands. The heavy weight of the alpha's cock had Tom's mind blanking. Head turning over his shoulder, taking the large form of the beast hunched over across his back, he could feel the length running against his folds with each broken pass, causing him to clench down as he turned his head back towards the floor. At the first press of the head to his entrance, he couldn't stop the sigh that left him, with the pleasant sensation leaving him wanting more as he slowly began to relax once more. He could feel the wolf's breath against his ear, causing it to twitch as he shakily raised his arm to feel behind him. When he felt the locks of the wolf's hair, he couldn't help but scratch out the fur, resulting in a surprise, yet no doubt pleased, pant that left what should have been a deadly predator. With his cockhead lingering at his entrance, and the quiet, content pants that Tord let out, it was easy to forget the situation they had been in prior. All that remained was a deeply rooted need. And through that need, it was easy to press his hips back, chirping in delight as he felt inch by inch of that thick cock filling him up in full. It was a sensation so far from what he was used to, having never been used to anything beside his own species, and even then, it was few and far between them already in place. But God, did it not have his toes? Far between that he would allow himself to mate. There was something almost taboo about enjoying it, with the fear of his life still so heavily in place. Instead, he rocked back into Tord, enjoying the claws that dug into his hips with each broken thrust forward. It was a borderline pain, yet painful fit given the size differences between them already in place. But by God, did it not have his toes, hooves, curling in delight. Fuck, he said, receiving an equally passionate grumble from Tord in response as the base of his cock fit snugly against his rear with each push forward. He could feel the flagging skin catching where Tord's knot would soon inflate. The sensation so strange as he braced himself against the snow to properly roll his hips back. The feeling only grew even more intense as Tord's hips began to pick up the pace. Arms moving from his hips instead to rest on either side of Tom's shoulders. They weren't particularly caging him in, yet the feeling of being surrounded by furry warmth had the sheep relaxing down into the snow as he let the fog on his head take over. He was mewling for more, punch dribbling slick with each pass as he attempted to arch his hips even further up. It was of little avail, however, given that Tord was adamant in pushing his knees down with each hard thrust forward. Tom was definitely enjoying himself now, letting his body get used and fucked wide open with each thrust. In fact, there was a power that Tom didn't expect behind Tord, making the smaller figure skid forward across the snow with each hard pass inside him. He felt his blank eyes rolling back as the cock kept nudging deep inside of him, rubbing against the walls of his cervix. And bending the channel as it saw fit. Without even realizing, he was gripping on Tord's arms, using the bulk to keep himself steady as he swore he'd end up launching forward if he failed to ground himself down. He let out a shocked cry when suddenly the length was stuffing even further inside him. Pain mixing with pleasure as the room of his entrance swelled with Tord's knot. The wolf was shoving himself as deep as he could within him, teeth gritting and growl bubbling in the back of his throat as the cold still nipped at his sensitive knot. Balancing himself with one paw on the ground and the other moving between Tom's legs, the poor lamb could hardly contain his key when the rough fingers began to rub at his clit in unsteady circles. The added sensation from his tail standing straight, wagging rapidly as his release grew close, tears spilling once more as his calls reached a fevered height. He shouted as Tord's knot filled him in time with his orgasm, body tensing and releasing a wave of slick coated the knot that still had yet to fully fit. He felt the physical burden being lifted when the knot stuffed firmly inside him, settling heavily within his gut as Tord's thrust turned into shallow humps against his thighs. Tom was completely spent by the time that the first warm waves of cum filled him, causing his stomach to ache and body to tremble as the seed rushed inside every inch of him. He sighed brokenly into his arm, body slumping down as Tord remained hovering over him. The wolf was completely out of breath, sweat beading down his forehead, as he stared at the little lamb, slumped down against the snow. He expected his hunger to be back by now that his hot knot was buried inside and sated, but it seemed his brain was still going haywire. The thought of digging his teeth into that supple neck was not nearly as alluring as it was before, even with hunger steadily rolling through him again. He would just get it over with, though. As much as his instincts screamed at him to not eat this perfectly fine morsel, he knew logically that he needed food. Just as he flashed his teeth to go in for the kill, a blinding pain along his nose had him howling in a mixture of shock and distress as suddenly the lamb bolted up and charged forward. At first his hips were dragging forward with him, tears welling in silver eyes as the pain was indescribable for his knot. Until with a loud pop, Tom was running free, legs carrying him rapidly back to the edge of the cliff, where he began his downwards descent. The lips of his cunt were splayed wide open and red, cum spilling out of him with each step as he finally turned around at the corner and jumped out of sight down the rocks once more. Tord almost considered chasing him until his first step forward had his freezing knot complaining with agony. He growled as instead he had to cup himself within his hands, the tugging and pulling an exertion of the sex, in general, finally taking its toll. He slumped backwards into the snow, still smelling the lingering rings of the sheep's faux heat. He slammed his fist into the spot where he once occupied, arm thrown up over his head as finally sore knot began to deflate once more. He was played like a fool, and it cost him his meal. Ah well, there was always next time, he supposed. I'm gonna fucking beat this Dr. Mario. There was always next time, he supposed. There was always next time, he supposed. I can't anymore. I cannot anymore. I don't know what the hell I just read. That just kind of came out. I don't know what I was reading. It just kind of happened. 30 minutes! What? Perish.